Okay, so where should we start? I mean, alienation. I think that's sort of the topic that
you're a family law lawyer.
Leads to everything.
I am. I've been.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Let's just start with the work that you do and the world that now allows you to see.
Yeah, I've been a family law lawyer for about 17 years now.
Okay, so you've seen it all.
I think I've seen it all at this stage.
It's pretty sad. Like, it's pretty abysmal.
It weighs you down.
Yeah.
That's without question. And I think one of the things that people forget about is that these are real people, real lives at stake.
Yeah.
And you can't treat every case like a court file number.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't treat every case the same way.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people miss that when they practice this area of law.
Do you find it just becomes so focused on winning versus losing, and you kind of lose the humanity, as you said, of the people that are actually having to live with the outcomes of family court, of decisions that, you make on a daily basis?
Yeah, look, some lawyers are about winning and losing. I think a lot of it is, the problematic aspect is mostly what ideology you might have in this area. A lot of people, they kind of, see, the law is so vague in this area that you could interpret it any which way you want. So I don't think it's about winning and losing. It's more, what ideology do you have? And if your ideology is such that you think there needs to be a certain result, you're going to look for any evidence to support that result. It's basically a confirmation bias.
Yes, that's exactly it.
And lawyers fall prey to that. I think judges fall prey to that. And a lot of other people within the system fall prey to that. And sometimes they move away from winning and losing, but it's kind of, in a way, the underlying issue.
Isn't it always at the end of it, though? Like, your client wants you to win when you are going to court, and it looks good on you to have won the file. There's no real winners in family court, but to be, more successful.
Yeah, look, a lot of clients want a certain result.
Yeah.
And as a lawyer, you have to kind of give them the news that you may not get everything you want, and, kind of pick what's most important to you. There are two people here who have competing interests at times, and both sides want to sort of win at times. So pick your best things, and that's what we'll focus most on. And then maybe you might have to give some things away to get that. It's not the most ideal situation, but you got to be realistic.
Are you finding that the parental, let's say, rights interpreted in the law are sort of superseding the children's?
Yes. Notwithstanding that there are several decisions, including one recently from the Supreme Court of Canada, even in 2023, in Berendracht and Grublianis, that is effectively, they're trying to say, look, children come first and decide cases on a case-by-case basis. But in reality, in practice, I find that the pull is more about parental rights as opposed to children's rights, and children largely get lost.
Yeah, I just feel like if the two parents in this scenario of family law each have a lawyer, that voice is going to be the loudest. You are going to be sharing, debating, sorting out how you can get your needs, your wants met. And you do kind of lose track of the kids. And so then who's advocating for them? Unless you say, pause, mom or dad or all of the various components, I'd like to speak to the children. But we don't do that.
Well,
and when we do, we kind of don't actually validate what they say.
Yeah, I mean, most cases are decided without ever hearing from a child whatsoever. And in fact, most of the interim decisions are made based on two lawyers writing, up to 12 pages double-spaced on a piece of paper, giving each side of the story without any ability to, explore whether somebody's truthful or not. And a judge decides this in a matter of 1 hour, and your life changes.
Yeah.
And the kids are so impacted. Like, this is directly impacting their safety, their happiness, their ability to succeed.
This will make or break their whole childhood and their formative years, and they'll remember that.
Formative years.
Formative
Yes, you
years.
crushed it. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Yeah. Well, there have been many cases that I have seen where, for example, a child had a certain parenting schedule that one parent was not happy with, but the child was doing very well.
Okay.
Straight A student, very social, going out with friends, activities, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, a judge makes a decision on a 1 hour motion. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll get 30 minutes to state your case.
Right.
And many times you might only get 15 minutes. And they make a new decision and a new reality for the kid. And the kid went from straight A student to I don't want to go to school anymore, to I don't want to talk to my friends anymore, to I don't want to do anything anymore because they're just depressed.
Right.
And I think a lot of it comes down to a lack of understanding. So if I take the most good faith situation of a judge, for example, that they want to do well for a child and they genuinely want to help. Now, I look at that judge's personal life. I mean, I don't in real life, but psychologically speaking, I look at that judge in real life and I say, well, what kind of family life does that judge probably have? That judge probably has a nice, intact family, good relationship with their kids, and they can't fathom why a child would not want to be with both parents equally, or why one parent might even engage in behaviors that a child might find uncomfortable or, dare I say, abusive.
Yeah.
And so because they, in their personal lives, may not be able to fathom it, they have trouble believing that other people might engage in behaviors that are dissimilar to their own.
Yes. And I find this especially socioeconomically. Those with deeper pockets, again, this is speculative only, my opinion, but well, there's no way that somebody that's part
abusive
of the, upper echelon and goes to the club and there's no way that they could be abusive. There's no way that somebody of this caliber, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's painting everyone with the same brush.
So I find that there is a bias that if you have wealth or you have your stuff together, you can't be abusive.
Right.
And what we find as well, and let me distinguish, because there's abuse cases, and then there's cases where two people genuinely do not get along and they need some assistance and coming up with a schedule.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
conflict versus abuse.
We're on the abuse side of things, right? What we find is a lot of people live almost like a double life, where publicly speaking, they are amazing people. They could even be philanthropists.
Absolutely.
They have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
They're outgoing. They're very sociable. And then behind closed doors, they are not great people.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to understand.
And it is tricky. Listen, I will say, how can you really know what goes on behind closed doors? They're closed. You don't have access to that. How do you believe? How do you just trust that the information folks are sharing is true? It's a difficult role. Lawyers, judges, you have a difficult job.
But I think that when you have one side saying something's happened and the other side screaming, and we'll talk about the alienation as a cover, how do they not believe the victim?
Well, it's a good question. And just for your viewers who don't know much about me, my practice is very diverse and I represent a wide range of people. As a general proposition, I represent about half of one side and half of the other. So I have a very good insight, I think, into both sides of the story.
Very helpful.
And I think it's important because when you do this area of work, domestic violence advocacy, I find that if you can understand both sides of the argument, you're more effective.
Yeah,
right. As opposed to having more of a tunnel vision. I'm not suggesting that advocates have that. I'm just saying that they miss arguments that I think sometimes do have points to them.
There's some validity,
And I think dismissing those outright is a mistake. So when you're talking about two sides of the story, the problem is the way our system is currently structured is, as I kind of alluded to earlier, most decisions are made at a very early stage with two very skilled lawyers writing down on a 12 pages, double spaced, okay, 6 pages, single spaced on a piece of paper.
Your whole life in 6
story,
pages.
where one person says one thing and the other person says the other.
Yeah.
Polar opposite.
And what do you want a judge to do in that set of circumstances? Because they don't know the answer.
Exactly.
So there is no easy answer.
There probably
at
isn't
the
just
outset.
one either. There is never just one answer. It's not that simplistic.
No.
But when your interim decisions can have such an impact on the children,
Yes.
you can't just, close your eyes and pick which one you want.
Yeah.
Or just choose one side.
So what would be better? How can we make this? Is there needs to be more probative work? Like, what do we need? More money in the system? I mean, it usually comes down to that. More money.
So more resources is definitely a must. Even the Office of the Children's Lawyer, they don't take many cases. Or, sorry, let me rephrase. They take many cases, but the amount of cases that they're being asked to take are so overwhelming that they can't possibly take on all those cases. So there's definitely a resource issue. There's a training issue, which we could get into.
Yeah, we'll get into that
a
for
little
sure.
bit later.
Yeah.
Okay. But, I think at the outset, if I may make a suggestion to my judicial colleagues, and they're not my colleagues, I look up to them, not the other way around, but they might want to exercise some caution a little bit more than they are.
Right.
Because if somebody's making a very serious allegation against the other spouse,
Right.
it's okay to be defensive. Okay.
Right.
Like, let's be practical here. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people might be telling the full truth. Some people might be exaggerating.
Sure.
Some people might genuinely believe something, even though it's not true.
Right.
Right. And there's a whole spectrum of possibilities there.
Right.
So, but a judge has to make a decision, because you can't just say, well, you're not going to see your kids because somebody made an allegation.
Right.
Okay. Unless the evidence is so overwhelming that we must immediately remove them at this stage. But take a cautious approach, right? You could go and you could say, look, I have this very serious allegation. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not true. I don't know.
Right.
Okay. But for the time being, let's have this temporary schedule.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not what you want. I get it. But here's something to get you going. And let's monitor this.
Yeah.
Okay. And if things are going well, we will expand. If things aren't going well, we will decrease. But what happens in real life is that cautious approach, A, isn't taken.
No.
And B, even when it doesn't go well, they don't treat it with the significance that I think it needs to be treated. And they continue to expand and expand and expand. And I find it very difficult that once a schedule is in place, reducing it is more problematic than increasing it.
Yes, it's almost like, once I talk to my clients about it all the time, that once they've set up this schedule, it's really hard to make a change unless there is some massive incident that happens, and you don't want to wait for something to happen. And so it seems like the judges would rather avoid that mess than actually do something that might be more safe than sorry.
Well, there's competing issues. Number one, there's no court time available.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Like if I
Right.
like Newmarket is one of my main courthouses. Okay. And we have some wonderful judges out in Newmarket. Okay. They're all family law specialists.
Wow.
That's important.
Okay. Well, that's another issue we can
we'll
discuss.
we'll get there.
Because
that feels unprecedented. Wow.
Not every court
Right.
has that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Not in Toronto.
Newmarket.
Yeah.
But if I want a motion date,
Yeah.
I'm looking months down the road. But in a child's life, months is a long
wait
time.
months.
Yeah.
And you can't get much done
No.
while you're waiting. So there is a resource issue there, just the amount of limited availability of judges to really manage these cases,
Yeah.
right? Because it would be easy for me to have a judge on standby and say, look, let's take a cautious approach for now. Let's see how it goes.
Right.
Okay. Let's check in next week. Let's check in 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, 1 month from now. But in reality, I can't do that.
Yeah.
There's no judge available. And even if they are available to an extent, they have a limited amount of time. Like, we're talking, will I get 1 hour with them?
Right.
These issues can't be done in 1 hour.
No.
It's
No.
very-
And so who are they relying on to do, like, there's no check-ins, my understanding, right? So what are you
Very
going to have,
few.
like,
Unless
a
you have
judge
some type of
junior that
assessment
can come,
happening,
like an
but
assistant that can go do
that's
that?
what we need.
But isn't that then the job of the social workers? And then don't we have all of these other
then
systems in
there's a lot of
place? And
Problems with that
it
as
also
well.
just, it feels a lot of kind of just kicking the can down, making it someone else's problem.
See you in a couple months, or we'll pass it off to a trial judge.
Yeah.
well,
Right? We'll just pass it off to the next one.
you kind of hit the nail on the head just now. they're passing it off in a way, because what some judges take the view of is if Children's Aid Society does not intervene, then there must be no problem.
Right.
And I probably overstated it a bit.
But
right?
that's essentially
We're
what
oversimplifying.
but that's essentially what happened.
Point,
The Children's Aid Society, if they don't verify something, then it didn't happen.
And they've got such a powerful voice.
Right. So here's the problem. Okay. I don't believe that Children's Aid Societies are well equipped to deal with abuse cases. Okay. In fact, I think that even courts, generally speaking, are not well equipped to deal with abuse cases. I think they're very well equipped to deal with two people who genuinely do not get along, that genuinely do not agree on a parenting schedule, but they're both wonderful parents.
Right.
I think in those set of circumstances, a court can definitely assist. There are certain standards that they have. This is a good schedule for a child of this age,
right?
So on and so forth.
Yeah.
Even there's some controversy and some difference of opinions.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
But on the whole, you can kind of make an argument.
And would you say that's the majority of the cases in family court?
Well, that's an interesting question, because it's my belief, and I think based on my experience, that most of the cases that go to court aren't two parents who just don't get along.
Right.
It's usually, I find, one parent that is the problem. Okay. Sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to say otherwise, but I think it's usually one parent is the problem. And once you're already in court, there is a reason why you're in court. And so I think that at that stage, you're probably not dealing with two parents who just don't agree on certain issues with.
Like I always want to say it just exacerbates. You come in maybe having a disagreement about what you think parenting time is appropriate at your kid's age. And then all of a sudden you're now in this system that, in my opinion, is designed for more conflict. And
what if you're coming in, though, because you are trying to protect your kids? You're coming in because you were abused, or they were abused, or there's abuse happening in some form. And this is the last stop to try your best to protect them. And then because you're in the system, you're treated as a troublemaker.
Yeah. So,
right. So that's a problem.
Okay.
That's
so
a big problem. Yeah.
So there's a very important point of what you mentioned in there. There are many families that turn to family court to help protect them from abuse. So we're talking about the abuse spectrum of the cases.
Yeah.
Okay. And where I think family court oftentimes fails is they fail to understand the dynamics. Okay. So by the time somebody has reached that point where they say, look, I've been abused, I now need help. Okay.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about presentation of people. For example, to use the stereotype. Okay. That woman was hysterical. I couldn't even understand what she was saying. She was ranting and raving.
Yeah.
And stereotype.
Yeah.
Okay. And then look at that guy, calm, cool, collected. And then I go and I say, look, what do you expect? You have somebody who says that they've been abused for many years. They've gotten the courage to leave the marriage, to ask for help. Okay. They've received no help to date. Okay. They're desperate. So yes, they may not appear to be so calm, cool, and collected as the other person who is, they weren't the ones who experienced the abuse.
They haven't lived in fear. Yeah.
Right. So the problem is, I say, look, that person, what you're seeing when that person is so-called hysterical isn't who they truly are.
Right.
That's just the point that they've reached out of exasperation. So don't look at them and judge them based on you seeing them at their absolute worst. Their fear levels are high, right? Understand their circumstances and their lived experiences before judging them. And let's look at the facts. Don't just look at their presentation. Okay.
Right.
And then the same with the abusers. I had a case, this is many years ago now. I'll change the facts just a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Sure.
but just so you understand the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. This lady came to me and said my husband was abusive.
Okay.
And what happened? And in this case, aside from even the emotional and psychological abuse, he was physically abusive. Now, those cases are the easiest to prove because I see the bumps and bruises.
Yeah.
Those are the easy abuse.
Yeah.
But just so you understand, those days are largely gone. They're not gone, but
Right.
like most of the abuse we see is non-physical.
Coercive
But in this
control.
particular case,
Yeah.
just so you could understand. So what happened? Well, he broke my, I'll say arm for the purposes of this story. Okay. He broke a body part. And she went to the hospital and, well, did you tell the staff there? No. Why didn't you tell the staff there? He was literally in the room with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he came as my husband. He's
Right.
literally in the room with me. What do you want me to tell
Yeah.
them? Well, was there any opportunity to tell them, in private? He was hovering over me. He
Right.
knows what he did.
Exactly.
So, of course, in the medical notes, what happened? I fell down the stairs.
Yeah.
Right? I'm using
Yeah.
the stereotype.
Yeah.
Fell down the stairs. Okay, no problem. I'm now ready to leave him. Right? And why'd you stay with him? And again, the stereotype, right? Nothing must have happened if you stayed with him.
Oh, yes.
No, that's not the truth. The research demonstrates that a woman will stay many times over with their partner despite domestic violence. They'll keep giving them chances. So I stayed with him. He said he would change, but he didn't change. He keeps hitting me. Maybe I didn't break a body part again, but he pushes me, he shoves me, he slaps me, whatever. Okay. So now she's ready for a divorce. I meet this guy in court. Okay. I see him at a case conference in person. He is the loveliest person you've ever met. Okay. The loveliest person. How are you, Mr. Viater? May I offer you a cup of coffee? I'm about to go get my lawyer one. Shakes your hand, opens the door for everyone. Okay. The loveliest man you've ever met.
Giving me chills.
Okay.
It's chilling because it's like you could,
So we go and we argue the case at a conference, which is a confidential process. And we come up with a consent order for supervised visits. Okay. That's fine. So this is the presentation of the guy, the nicest man you've ever met. Okay. He will babysit your kids and you will love him. Now, she comes to me several months later, I want to get back together with him. Okay. He says he's going to change. Anyway, putting aside my comments to her and advice to her, it's her ultimate decision, despite my views. It's not, I can only say what I think, but, ultimately I'm a divorce lawyer.
Right.
Not, I have limited ability to do and say certain things. So she gets back together with him. Again, the loveliest man you've ever met. Well, 3 months later, she returned to my office. She had a broken leg this time. He was the loveliest man you've ever met. But she came back to me with a broken leg. And then we went at it at court, and he had supervised visits effectively in perpetuity.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what's happened since, because many years have happened since then. But I mean, it's an example of how presentation isn't the be all and end all. Like, don't judge the presentation at the time.
But if it wasn't for the physical aspect of it, would they have believed her? Because the physical makes it so, right? It's right there in your face.
So in that particular case, the physical is what did it, because it was so clear cut. But yes, most cases, you're not going to have that physical evidence. And will they believe you? Most of the time, I'm going to say no. But I've had many cases, including reported decisions, where I was able to get no parenting schedule for an abusive parent based on non-physical abuse. But it took a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of emotional energy to get that done. And so most people aren't equipped to go that distance. So a lot of it they just live with the ongoing abuse, effectively in perpetuity.
And what about when the victims are accused of alienation? You talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
It's a topic we love to talk about as well.
So alienation, first of all, let's define it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that we understand what it is. I'm going to give a very simple definition.
Love
this isn't the scientific definition. Let's just be really simple about it. Okay. Generally speaking, it's the accusation that some parent is engaging in a repeated pattern of behavior designed to undermine the other parent that results in an unjustified estrangement from that parent.
Okay.
Just a simple way of looking at it. Okay?
That's a simple version.
And if you want it even simpler than that,
Yeah.
then one parent says, I had a great relationship with my kid today, and tomorrow, all of a sudden, that kid wants nothing to do with me. So the reason must be that the other parent caused that kid to feel that way.
Right.
Simplest way.
Yeah.
So what I find right now with parental alienation is it is predominantly used as a defense against abuse. And what it does is it shifts the burden from the abuser explaining, why are you engaging in this behavior, to the victim explaining, why are you now engaging in alleged behaviors designed to alienate.
This is like asking a sexual assault victim, what were they
prove that they-
wearing?
Right.
No, like that's what it is.
Or
It's like,
prove that you
let's shift
or
the
prove that
attention
you
to the
were-
blame.
You were assaulted,
Sure.
right? Or prove why you exactly.
No, I actually
No.
think it's taking away from the incident, the action, taking away from the onus of this person has some accountability and responsibility
Right.
to, no, now you have accountability and responsibility.
The onus is now on the person being accused of
Exactly.
alienation to
victim.
prove the
Yeah.
victim that they're not an alienator, rather than the abuser taking accountability for what they're actually
Yeah,
their abuse.
It
Yeah.
shifts. It shifts the focus, right?
Yeah.
Now the examination is no longer on the abuse.
Yeah.
You're now in defense mode.
Exactly.
And that's where the problem
yes.
stems. And so there have been numerous studies. This is a phenomenon actually all across the world that they've already done. There was actually a UN rapporteur who made a very famous report a couple years back on this, where it was used with great effect by abusers to detract from them and put the focus on, in most cases, mom.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, in my practice, when somebody raises parental alienation, I actually view that as a red flag that they're probably an abuser.
There you go.
Because first of all, it's a phenomenon that is not so, it doesn't happen often.
Right.
That's
Right,
number
exactly.
one. But you'd think it happens on a daily basis in family
Yes.
court, because every case
It's-
you read
is an
parental alienation.
Yes.
Right. But domestic violence happens often.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so when you talk about the shift of
Yeah.
focus, this is where people get lost in the weeds and the victims always suffer. So we're now really dealing with an ideology that is circular in nature. Okay. So first of all, parental alienation syndrome is widely criticized
Mhm.
in the scientific community.
Right.
I think most people don't know that. I think they think that it's actually an accepted syndrome. It actually is
The
not.
pseudoscience.
I call it junk science.
There you go.
It is not science because it cannot be replicated across anyone. Like,
Right.
and so there's a lot of studies that confirm this. And so the problem is that most of the parental alienation is still based on this parental alienation syndrome. And it hasn't been accepted, for example, in the DSM,
Right.
right? So this is not a widely accepted syndrome. So what have people done instead? Well, people are very creative. So they say, okay, let's not call it a syndrome. Let's just say you're engaging in parental alienating behaviors.
Mhm.
But it's still based on this person's
Yeah.
junk science.
Yeah.
Okay. And the problem when you're dealing with alienation is, I call it circular, because if you look at what it is, so let's go with the easiest one.
Yeah.
You are undermining the relationship with the other parent. You're not encouraging or facilitating it. Okay, well, hold on one second here. Almost anything could fall under that category. If I'm an abuse victim, I have rightful hesitation,
Yeah.
right? So is it accurate that you might not be fully encouraging the relationship? Probably. But is there a reason for it? Yes, there is. But if you're into that ideology of parental alienation, everything is now parental alienation. So you're alienating. Okay. Or what they'll oftentimes do is, oh, you know what? It's a mix. You're engaging in alienating behaviors because you're not encouraging, but the person might have some abusive characteristics. But when you do that and you're basically both siding it, right? But you're both at fault.
Right.
the abusive behaviors are now no longer being assessed or analyzed and addressed.
Or factored
they're
in.
dismissed.
Yeah, they're dismissed.
And her credibility is
Yeah,
completely shot.
along with it. Yeah.
They're dismissed. And so this leads to two really serious outcomes. Number one, courts are penalizing women for speaking out or expressing any concern. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as a wholesale. Obviously, it doesn't happen in 100% of cases, but in enough cases to be of concern.
Right.
Okay. So we have that situation.
Yeah.
And number two, what ends up happening, and this, we're going down a rabbit hole, as you'll find out in a moment, is there's this concept called institutional betrayal trauma. Okay. So what is it? Because a lot of people haven't heard of it, but they understand the concept if I explain it. So if you're a victim and you go to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a Children's Aid Society, a judge, you are relying on that institution to help protect you, to defend you, to help you in any way. And when those institutions are instead turning against you, you now have this sense of trauma that you're being re-victimized. Now you don't trust the institutions. You don't trust that social worker. You don't trust that child protection worker. You don't trust that psychologist. You don't trust that judge. You don't trust that police officer. And so guess what happens? You delve deeper into, what did I say? Presentation. Okay. All of a sudden you are looking less and less cooperative. Okay. But really it's the system that's making you less and less cooperative. And meanwhile, what's happening in the background is the abusive person is sitting there effectively with a smile on their face saying, good, there's no attention on me whatsoever anymore. And so that's what ends up happening.
God, it just breaks my heart.
And you see this so clearly. We see this so clearly. How come the courts don't see this so clearly?
So I think there's a couple things at stake. Okay. Number one, I think when judges become judges, they already have a certain ideology. Okay. And you're either in the parental alienation ideology or you're in the other camp, which recognizes it as junk science.
Right.
And just stop with that. Okay. So I think there's that. The other issue is I think there is a significant lack of training for judges on this area. I think what ends up happening is you have these, if you look at factors of alienation, so-called factors of alienation, they're very generic. Okay. And so if a judge looks at them without any real training, okay, if you have the ideology, you're going to fit anything and everything in that camp. You can, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. No matter how innocuous. Look, here's another great example. Okay. I did this trial and this was it's just an example. Okay. Again, I'll have to change some of the facts just for confidentiality purposes, even though it's a public record, but let me just do it for your audience. So you get the point. Parties separate, and the mom was primary caregiver of the children. Dad had never, ever taken the children to a doctor or set up a medical appointment to the doctor. The parties are still living together, but they separated. Neither party got a lawyer. Okay? The child was sick. So what did mom do? Took the kid to the doctor.
Right.
Well, fast forward 1 year later when we're at trial, and guess what the cross-examination was? You didn't consult with the father, did you, when you went?
You made a unilateral decision without consulting the other parent. How dare you?
And of course, during my cross-examination, I put it into perspective. And thankfully, I did have a judge who understood that the real perspective of don't assume the worst because something happened, because that's not like, people assume that two things. One, that people are going to act as the family court expects them to, even though their family life was nothing like this idealistic world of family court where everyone is an equal parent and everyone does everything equally. That's number one. And number two, don't assume that a parent is effectively acting to harm the other parent. They did things as they were always done.
Right.
Okay? If you're asking for a change, then ask for the change. But don't make that leap and then say you are intentionally undermining the other parent when all they were doing was what they had been doing for the last 15 years of marriage without any issue or concern ever raised. Right? So like, give them an opportunity to at least correct themselves and say, okay, there's a new reality. I will consult with you next time. But they don't do that. Instead, they immediately lump it in alienation. So that's another interesting point. So there, again, multiple camps. So you can't lump every lawyer in the bad camp, so to
No.
speak. Okay? There's a spectrum of lawyers.
Yeah.
And I find that most of my colleagues mean well. Okay. I think that some of them need better training. I think they lack the training.
Yeah.
We know some amazing family
We do.
lawyers.
We absolutely do. We use all the
doing
time.
a wonderful, amazing work. And
But then there is a small subset of lawyers that I don't think engage in appropriate or ethical practices. And they intentionally raise alienation as a form to detract from abuse and then sort of coach their clients as to how to get away with it. And so it's a small subsection of lawyers. The worst part is, okay, as I'm speaking, I bet you anything that if you went on a family law forum, like a singles mom forum of abuse victims, and they heard what I'm saying today, I bet you anything, if you ask them, name a lawyer, a lot of them will name the same lawyer over and over and over again, who's well known in the space, that is just known for representing abusive men and really just using the court system to harm the mother. And there is valid concern. I won't outright say it is true because I don't know for a fact yet, but there is at least a reasonable concern as to whether some lawyers are intentionally trying to harm the mother and children.
How is there no recourse? Like, how is there no accountability?
So from the lawyer's perspective, what they always say is, I'm just following the advice of my client, and you're not going to get behind privilege.
But don't lawyers have a duty to not mislead the court, right? That's part of their professional standards. So that would be essentially misleading the court. To behave in an ethical way, that would be against ethics. Like, this is sort of common lawyer 101.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think that family law needs to have a special carve out in terms of how a lawyer represents somebody, because we're now not talking about, we're fighting over, a contract dispute in a commercial business, right? We're talking about real children, real people.
Yes.
And I don't think that certain tactics should be used, but some lawyers use them.
What kind of tactics are they using?
Oh boy. So I've seen, for example,
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.